What's going on, guys? B Scott here with you. On today's show, we got your wide receiver sit starts heading into week number 8. I got a lot of must-start receivers I'm just going to rattle off real quick, and then obviously I got some guys that I think you should be plugging into your lineups, and then guys that I would be sitting heading into week number 8. So keep it locked and loaded right here at the first 4 downs. What's going on, guys, and welcome back. B Scott here with you, and we're going over your wide receiver sit starts heading into week number 8. Now, I'm not going to be able to touch on every single receiver, but I got the must-start receivers. I'm going to rattle them off quickly. On top of that, I got 4 or 5 starting receivers that I like this week heading into week number 8. And then I got some sit receivers, guys that I think in tough matchups I would probably be straying away from. So before we get to today's content, don't forget, like the video, subscribe, share, thumb bell, all the good stuff, and then comment. If there's any receiver I didn't mention or receivers you want to hear more about, drop in the comment section. I will be glad to give you my opinion. Sit, start, flex, wide receiver 2, 3, who start this guy over that guy, whatever kind of questions you got, drop in the comment section. I would be glad to give you my advice. So let's start at the top with just must-start receivers, guys that you would be starting any given week. I'm going to rattle them off quickly. Number 1, Cooper Kupp at the Houston Texans. He's a start for me. Honestly, Houston hasn't given up a ton of fantasy points, but it's Cooper Kupp, so you don't got to worry about it. Set it and forget it. Jamar Chase, playing the New York Jets. He's just been outstanding. Coming off 200-yard game, you're going to have him in your lineups. Tyreek Hill, playing the New York Giants. You got to fire him here. I think he's due for another big game here and a bounce back from the Kansas City Chiefs. So Tyreek Hill, obvious start. Deebo Samuel, it's Wednesday, coming up with a little injury. We'll have to wait and see if he's ready to play, but they're playing the Chicago Bears. Good start for him. You're firing him if he's healthy. DK Metcalf versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. Good spot here for him. And now DK, yes, his ceiling is not as high as you hoped it would be without Russell Wilson under helm, but he's still getting it done. Had the 80-yard touchdown, and I like him this week once again, so you're going to be firing DK Metcalf. Mike Williams, playing the New England Patriots. He's been great. Top 5 to 7 wide receiver option. You're starting him. Terry McLaurin, dealing with a little bit of injury concerns, but playing the Denver Broncos. He's been more boom or bust than I thought he would be coming into the season, but I'm still firing him here against Denver. That defense is kind of falling apart. DJ Moore at Atlanta. You got to be firing him. 7th most fantasy points to the wide receiver position Atlanta's given up. And DJ Moore is averaging like 10 or 12 targets a game. There's no way you're sitting that kind of production. So DJ Moore is an obvious start. Chris Godwin at the New Orleans Saints. I like him over Mike Evans this week. Mike Evans is going to have to deal with Marshon Lattimore. He's really struggled with them against them in the past. So it could be a tough spot here. No AB. So I like Godwin to have a huge day here at the New Orleans Saints. I think they can finally beat these New Orleans Saints. Tampa Bay hasn't beat them in 2 years. So Chris Godwin needs to start for me. Mike Evans, like I mentioned, I think it could be a long day here. If you got to start him, I understand. But he's going to be facing Marshon Lattimore. It's going to be tough. Coming off a great game, and honestly, he's been pretty darn good on the season. But on the road against New Orleans, not a good spot for Mike Evans. And then Hopkins as well, playing Thursday Night Football. Short week. He's banged up, didn't practice at all. They're saying he's questionable. I remember in week 3, he didn't practice at all. And what happened? He kind of decoyed out there, had a dud. I want to say 3 catches, 21 yards, something like that. So be wary of DeAndre Hopkins this week. Green Bay Packers haven't given up a ton to the wide receiver position fantasy-wise, but Hopkins is always a threat for a touchdown, so that's why you're probably firing him here. A.J. Brown at the Indianapolis Colts, smash spot. He's been looking absolutely healthy and really dominating target share at this point, especially with Julio Jones in and out of the lineup. So A.J. Brown must start. Stephon Diggs, same situation. You're firing him no matter what. He hasn't necessarily reached what you were hoping when you drafted him, but he's still been very, very good on the season for the most part. So Diggs, an obvious start for me heading into week number 8. So now we can get to some other starts, some wide receivers that I think you should be plugging in your lineups this week in plus matchups. Number 1 I'm going to start with is Courtland Sutton, playing the Washington football team, giving up the 2nd most fantasy points to wide receivers, the 2nd most yards, 2nd most receptions, 2nd most touchdowns. And last week, Courtland Sutton caught all 5 of his targets. He can't throw the ball to himself. The 2 weeks prior to that, I want to say he had 25 targets in the previous 2 weeks, so it's not like he's not being targeted. I like him here this week. He's got big play upside and ability. They're at home. And yes, Jerry Jeudy should be back and active. That should probably help Courtland Sutton, in my opinion. Now, yes, it will hurt his target share a little, but I think it'll open him up downfield a little bit more. So I like Courtland Sutton this week. A really good spot, a really good play. Probably a top 15 receiver for me heading into week number 8. Another guy I like, Michael Pittman Jr., playing the Tennessee Titans, give up the most fantasy points to wide receivers, the most yards, the most receptions. They've given up 10 touchdowns to wide receivers, and Pittman's been good. outside of 2 weeks ago against Houston, in which they really didn't need to utilize him in the passing game at all. I want to say 3 or 4 targets just that game. Last week, you saw it against 49ers. He made some great plays, getting targeted deep downfield on some shots, and I like him this week in a divisional matchup at home against a Tennessee secondary that, in my opinion, is really not all it's cracked up to be. So Michael Pittman Jr. must start this week, heading into week number 8. Randall Cobb versus the Arizona Cardinals. Now, this is a reason because no Allen Lazard, no Devonta Adams. It's obvious. And Arizona is middle of the pack against the wide receivers for fantasy. But they have given up 9 receiving touchdowns, which is tied for the 4th most in the league. And this comes down to Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers likes to play and throw the ball to people he trusts. Plain and simple. That's just how he works. He doesn't like to give these guys a lot of huge volume on the other things. You look at Allen Lazard. He's played decently in spots, but he's not necessarily trustworthy for 8 to 10 targets. And I think Aaron Rodgers this week, having Randall Cobb as one of his only targets, albeit MVS should be back and ready to play in this game, I like Randall Cobb potentially to see 10-plus targets. I think they're going to slow this game pace down. They can run the ball effectively against the Arizona Cardinals. So I like Randall Cobb probably to see 8 to 10 targets at least in this game. Could find the end zone here in the short yardage situation. So Randall Cobb, he's a start for me heading into week number 8. And then Devonta Smith. I'm going to try it one more time. I tried it against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and really that defense is starting to pick it up a little bit, and it really gave Jalen Hurts some fits. This week, playing the Detroit Lions, giving up 10th most fantasy points to wide receivers, the 4th most yards, and Devonta Smith is averaging 9 targets, 3 of his last 4 games, so I like Devonta Smith here in a game in which I could see the Detroit Lions really hanging in this game, and I potentially see the Detroit Lions actually winning this football game, considering how bad the Philadelphia Eagles have played, and Jalen Hurts has been really inconsistent with his play. But I like Devonta Smith here to probably see another 8 to 10 targets, potentially find the end zone. He hasn't found it, I want to say, since week 1 or week 2. So Devonta Smith, he's a start for me this week, but you're taking a chance. You know that it's kind of boom or bust here. Now on to some sits. Wide receivers that I'd be sitting this week. Jaylen Waddle. I've loved him for the most part, and he's getting a lot of targets, but they're playing the Buffalo Bills. And to be honest, the Buffalo Bills give up the fewest fantasy points to wide receivers, just 2 touchdowns on the season, and really just 1 touchdown to a wide receiver since week 1. So I don't like Waddle's chances here. No wide receiver has cleared 91 yards against the Buffalo Bills, and it's just not a good spot. Even if Jaylen Waddle figures to see 8 to 10 targets, I don't like his chances of getting 7-8 receptions, over 60-70 yards, and he more than likely won't find the end zone in this one. But, I mean, I'm no guaranteed predictor, but I'm just saying it could be a long day here for the Miami Dolphins in general. And Devontae Parker, he's limited in practice. Maybe he can get out there and give it a go. Maybe that helps open up Jaylen Waddle a little bit, but if he's by himself, I don't like him in the matchup, especially with just Tre'Davious White more than likely being on him. So, no thank you to Jaylen Waddle this week. And then Tyler Lockett. He just has been a disappointment, especially without Russell Wilson. There's no connection with Geno Smith at all. They can't get on the same page, and it's not even a bad spot. The Jacksonville Jaguars aren't that good overall as a defense, but there's just no faith for me in Geno Smith over the last 2 weeks. Held to 4 receptions for 47 total yards, no touchdowns, and really since week 2, he's been held under 57 yards in every single game. So I don't like Lockett here in really probably a good spot for him. I just don't trust Geno Smith and that offense as a whole. They really didn't show me going forward that they can be explosive and make some plays. Obviously, DK, you're starting him. He's the alpha, but I'm going to stay away from Tyler Lockett this week. Corey Davis, playing the Cincinnati Bengals. Caught a touchdown, actually, in garbage time last week. And this week, they got the Cincinnati Bengals. And Mike White is going to be the starting quarterback. Who knows what's going to happen here? And that's why I don't like Corey Davis as a start this week. I think he's been productive on the season so far in spots, but I just don't like what that Jets offense is going to look like. Who knows? Mike White and Cincinnati Bengals defense has been pretty good on the season, giving up the 8th fewest fantasy points to wide receivers and just 5 receiving touchdowns. So no thank you to Corey Davis. He's a sit for me this week. And then the New England pass catchers. They've been sits for me a lot of weeks, but this week especially, going against the Los Angeles Chargers, 2nd fewest fantasy points to wide receivers, the fewest receptions, the fewest yards, just 3 receiving touchdowns. Just 1 wide receiver has cleared 70 yards, and just 1 wide receiver has cleared actual 8 receptions in a game. No receivers had more than 8 receptions. So I don't love any of these pass catchers anyway. None of them have stuck out to me as starts or must-starts on any given week. Jacoby Myers, I've liked him for a long time, but he's just not getting the volume and enough downfield targets or anything productive for fantasy. Kendrick Bourne, Nelson Aguilar. Yes, in spurts, they're making plays. But I just can't trust it this week against the LA Chargers. I get it. Could be shootout potential here, but I think the tight ends will have a pretty good day. I think Hunter Henry, revenge game a little bit. He should have a decent day. And I think the running backs are going to be able to get it done. So I'm going to stay away from the New England pass catchers altogether. So that's it. That's all the wide receivers that I'm going to go through for sits and starts. And if there's anything I missed or didn't mention, a receiver you got on your team you want to hear more about, drop in the comment section. I'll be glad to give you my opinions. And then once you're there, like the video, subscribe, share Thumbell for all your off-season or all your season-long fantasy football videos, all your sit starts, all the game picks, everything that we do week in and week out, all the way to your fantasy football championship. So for the first 4 downs, it's been B. Scott, and I'm out.